This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I'm Dr. Perry, your host, and I'm here today joined with Nancy Bleeke. She is a sales growth consultant, author, and speaker who found her calling helping people who never saw themselves in sales succeed in selling. Ironic for this originally reluctant sales pro. Her book, Conversations That Sell, has been named a top sales book of all time. Now, after raising 3 children in Wisconsin, Nancy and her husband, John, have recently relocated to Florida to chase as much active time outdoors as possible. So welcome, Nancy, to the show. Thank you for being a guest.
I'm so happy to be here. Or do I need to call you Dr. Perry?
Travis is such a better word. Let's be honest. But thank you. I always like to kick off the show with asking people, I guess where they got this idea that they should be serving financial advisors or, deciding to become an advisor. I know you're an advisor to advisors. So tell us, quickly your story of how you ended up serving this industry.
It is an interesting route, like for most everybody. So I was working in financial services as the head of HR and training. That was my role for years. And when we had a liquidity event, I had no idea what to do with stock options when I was leaving that. So I went to the yellow pages to look for who might be able to help us because I was not going to work with anybody within our place. And I found the advisor who I still work with 28 years later. And I see personally how much having him in our lives, because I do consider him part of our family unit, has helped us in making decisions, in having less stress, etc. So when I was looking for a career transition, he actually is the one who told me that he wanted to refer me to other of his friends who had small advisory firms because I had been helping him for years in helping train his staff, helping him bring on more people, set up their functions, etc. And so as I started doing that, he's like, you need to do this as a business. And coming out of financial services and then having a handful of financial advisory firms I'd work with as my second job, I started Sales Pro Insider, and that's what I've done. But interesting, I've asked him, if you went way back then, why didn't you encourage me to become a financial advisor? Because I see what a great career it is. I've got my master's degree. I'm sure I could have gotten the designations. And he said, I didn't want you to be my competition. So instead, I feel that I serve advisors to help them because I do believe that almost everybody's lives would be better if they worked with a good advisor. And so by helping advisors grow their business, I'm helping the industry, even though I'm not an advisor.
Love it. So good. We have so much connection there. Starting off as an advisor myself and then kind of getting out and helping other advisors. Yeah, there's definitely a calling here, right? A professional calling for you to fulfill and in your vision to serve other advisors. It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And, everybody knows, hey, you understand the industry. You've been there, you get it, and you really can get into the mind of advisors. Because I think a lot of advisors, when they get to this point and they're going to talk about the sales process, there's a lot of shutdown, which we'll get to later. So, relax, everyone. Nancy's going to speak from experience here when we get to pick her brain on this stuff. But first, I like to ask this question about balance, right? This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast. As an advisor to these advisors, what are your personal biggest issues that you have trying to achieve balance? But I want you to think about that. Let me back up one question before that. Let's talk about what is your definition of balance? How do you define balance?
I think balance is a personal decision that most people don't make. So balance to one person is really different than it is to another. And when people are stressed or they're saying, I'm never balanced, I'm too much at work, I'm too much here, I'm spending too, it's like, well, how do you have that defined? Like, you can't achieve balance unless you have it defined for yourself. So I remember an activity that I did, let's see, it has to be almost 17 years ago. And I was in a group, a mastermind group, and we were looking at setting our business goals and things. And I was like, gosh, I'm never getting this work-life balance. I had 3 kids. I was running my own business, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, well, at the end of the week, how do you know that you aren't achieving balance? And it was just this light bulb went up that I needed to define it for myself. And at that point, I defined it as the number of meals I ate with my family, each week, the quality time we had, being involved in different activities in their school, as well as then my business goals. And that I've learned that balance means you have to have goals in both areas. If you're talking work-life balance, you have to have goals in both areas, but they both have to be transparent because you have to make sure they're not in conflict. So to me, balance it's an individual decision, but it has to be made or you never achieve it.
Yeah, so good. That's great. It's a number of meals that you had with your family. I had a client who resonates with this. He's on my website. He's one of great success stories, but he was only spending 4 meals a month with his family. And he knew that was like his litmus. He's like, whoa, something's way out. I don't even know how I got here. Right. So I love that you bring that up, and it absolutely is defined for yourself. When I first wrote this book, I was thinking, achieving work-life balance, and I had it on the title. I'm like, this is wrong. It's about balance in every area. And I love that you brought that up of like setting goals, in work and personal, like in everything that involves that. But setting that intentionally for yourself. It's great that light bulb has come on. So let's move on to the next question that I accidentally jumped to at the first. And that is, now that you've raised 3 kids, you have this business you're running to help advisors. What are the biggest roadblocks, the biggest issues, things that get in your way the most when you're trying to actually achieve that balance that you described?
For myself, it's interesting. So it is staying clear on goals. And as the kids left and there was more time, I actually found myself becoming more unbalanced. I found myself, I don't have anything else to do. I'll go back in the office for a few hours tonight. And that affected my marriage. It affected my friendships, because if you're someone who enjoys your work, which a lot of advisors do, it's so easy to spend time there. And so, COVID actually really helped us, because we ended up for 3 months stuck in Southern Florida, which everyone was like, oh, boo-hoo, because it was, March, April, May. And in Wisconsin, those aren't great weather months. But we were stuck here without, a lot of other things to do, whatever. And it was a really great time to reconnect and slow things down and reevaluate everything with the business, reevaluate everything with our marriage. And, I believe everything happens, and if you're paying attention, you learn from it and move on. And, little did we know that those 3 months would have set us up for one of the biggest challenges that we would face in our marriage. And that was an accident that I had last summer that put us into a 10-month, me not being able to walk, et cetera. And our marriage being so much stronger from those 3 months really helped, through everything we needed to walk through together with that. So coming out of it, actually right now, I am working with a accountability partner, and we are working again on defining our balance. And so we have 4 times set up with each other over the next month to work through some activities so that I can, at the end of this year, tell you better what is balance going to be like for me at work. Because right now it was upset and I need to reset it.
So good. Not the accident part and the 10 months of not being able to do anything, but it's interesting in our lives how some things happen at interesting times, right? That gave you that reprieve from everything that was maybe pulling you away. But what I found very interesting, what you mentioned is, as the kids left home, you found yourself more unbalanced, because that's exactly the key. I think the key to keeping balance, not just achieving it, but retaining it long-term, is your family involvement, your couple and family involvement. Those who are married, you get it. You've got to work together, but the family aspect, And I actually interviewed one advisor who said, Travis, my family is my balance. I was like, yeah, you're exactly right. Because it helps you, gives you pause, it gives you reason to do anything personal, right? You work on your health so that you can be there for your kids, et cetera. So that's exceptional. I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope that, as you guys are creating this accountability that, you can help each other really figure out what that is and really define it. That's fantastic. What do you see as issues for most advisors? I know you work with, just tons of advisors in this space, but you see their work, their schedules, you get to know them on a different level as an advisor to them. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges or issues that they face in the industry?
It's interesting. With a slant on sales, I see this imbalance with them not giving attention to something they maybe don't enjoy, don't feel good about, etc. And they get imbalanced in that without attention there, they're always at certain, not always, at certain points, all of a sudden there's panic. And now I've got to do all this stuff. I've got to contact people. I've got to try to figure out things. I got to put all this money into something because they haven't balanced what they're doing in their business. So, taking it that direction. And then it's catch up where, all the parts of the business, like understanding that there's, the service part of the business, there's the accounting part of the, there's all the parts of it, but they all need to be, and again, not equal, but they need to be collectively balanced so that you don't have these stops and starts that are so inefficient. And actually, I was talking with an advisor this morning, and I said to her, it's soul crushing. I go, that's, I think, what stresses me out for advisors. It's soul crushing when you're working on the stuff you love, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I've ignored this part. And now I'm scrambling to get it, but I'm starting behind, and things, don't typically happen that quickly. And it just becomes this, soul crushing lack of confidence thing, which gets in the way then of even getting where you need to be. So that's where I see the imbalance, with most of the advisors I work with.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, the C word came to mind, compliance. When you're talking about ignoring this part of the business, it's like, this is a big. They might like that less than sales, but maybe not. I will tell you, I work with advisors every single day that tell me all the activities that they work on. And I outline this in the book, to basically go through and outline its business time management section, chapter 6, go through and look at every activity that you do, everything. And, I do this one-on-one with them in a strategy session, and I can really dig and ask questions and really kind of one-on-one define this. But even if you just did this on your own, as you're trying to look for balance, what are you doing professionally in your business? Where are all the places? You might think you're a financial advisor, but what I've typically found is that advisors are really only advisors about 20% of the time. That's it. And that has been consistent. The things they complain about, compliance, they know they have to do it. They don't really like doing it, but it's got to get done. But I will tell you this, back to your point, most advisors tell me that the new acquisition of clients, or having new blood, new clients into their system, that energizes them more than anything else they do. Is that crazy or what? I mean, you probably know more about this than I do in the psychology of the sales process. And maybe it's the dopamine rush. Maybe it's just that feeling of, I got a new client, so I feel great. And, maybe it is the money for some, but I want to turn this and put it on its head and say, actually, I think sales is like one of the most important things that they learn to do extremely well, because they spend a lot of time fretting about and trying to get that thing done so they can have clients, right? So it is kind of a catch-22, but maybe explain that a little bit more. What is it that they start and stop doing? Is it sales? Is it the marketing? Put that together for us. Both.
So, and I do think marketing and sales is different, right? So marketing, 100%. Marketing are the activities and the, people think about like the content and all that, which is important. Sales, the actual business development sales part of it is from the time someone is willing to talk with you, how do you work them through them making a confident decision to come on with your services? And advisors, most advisors I know really have a passion for wanting to help people. But if they can't help them make that first important decision, they never really get to help them. And I was talking on, I think, Monday with an advisor about, he wanted to talk about how can he re-engage people from the last 10 years who he feels he left hanging because he didn't do follow-up after a conversation. He didn't. And now that he knows what he knows, he's like, gosh, so many of them I really could have helped. I don't think they're probably doing anything. And so we were talking about this re-engagement. And I said, when you're thinking about that, that is, you let them down. You let them down. Like it's if you take on this, I have a, fiduciary, I'm at this reason that I'm helping people. Well, you got to help them make that first decision, whether it's to work with you or not, at least help them make a decision. So they're not just floundering and in that gray area. So, I think that's the start and stop. And I think, I've got enough in my pipeline. If I take on any more, like I'm going to be too busy. I hear that it's an interesting excuse that if I do too much, I'm going to get too busy. And then I don't know, if I have to hire more people, I don't know if this, and it's like, whoa, we are getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's, get people in your pipeline. Let's, help you feel more confident. And one of the best compliments an advisor gave me a couple of years ago, I'd been working with him for about 3 years. And he said, the big thing I've taken away from everything, he goes, you help me realize I'm not one person when I'm selling and another person once I become an advisor. I don't have a sales hat and an advisor hat. I'm an advisor even when I'm selling.
So good. That totally resonates, and it should resonate with most advisors, right? Because if you have a fiduciary responsibility, when does that responsibility start and stop? It's always there, right? So, I mean, it makes total sense. And I would talk to, I've been on stages all over the country talking to advisors about their responsibility with couple clients because they don't do that great of a job. They're not trained in it. They don't know really how to deal with couples if they argue, whatever. But then I'm always asking them, what's your fiduciary responsibility here? And most of them have told me, and I've seen the research on this because I did the data analysis. Most of them say, I just try it anyway. And they blow that fiduciary responsibility. But you're right. Like if they truly are, fiduciaries, which they are, right, legally, that financial advisors, and they have that helper mentality, it's not just through the sales process. It's not just to get them started, but that re-engagement, the service aspect. I've worked at broker dealers where heavy sales process, little tiny service process, right? Yet that's what we tout in the sales process is we're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you. Yeah, they've got a good home office and they've got great ratings and things, but to serve the client long-term. And isn't that interesting? That's what you led with. And I don't know if you meant to do this or not, maybe just subconsciously it came out. You led with an advisor who was part of your family, like to consider them like part of your household. That's a really big responsibility. But that, when I think of a really good financial advisor, that's who they are. They show up to your birthdays. They're there at family events. Like they're doing those things to really look after you and make sure that things are going. So anyway, we're getting off on a different spot. I didn't think we'd go, but that's what this podcast is all about, is kind of going there. So let's talk about being too busy. Do you think that do you think that's a reluctancy for most advisors, that when they're like, oh, I've got to improve my sales process, that I'm going to get too busy with my clientele?
I think it's definitely one that's there. I don't know if it's the leading one. I actually think the leading one is the feeling that they're manipulating somebody if they're selling. And I work with a lot of independent advisors, so not, in the big, I did over 23 years, but a lot of the independent advisors are afraid of looking desperate and they're afraid of looking too salesy. There's such a negative connotation towards sales still to this day. And there's a real negative connotation to someone saying I'm a financial advisor, because right away, people are like, whoa, yeah, busy, really busy. I don't have time, But it's being able to, explain what you do as an outcome versus giving yourself a title, I think is really helpful in that. So I don't want to get down on that path, but, too busy is one of the things that people bring up, that they're concerned about that, but that is masking the discomfort in what do I need to do. And I always tell people, I will never tell you to make 50 phone calls a day like that. What we do is help them put together a strategy that fits who they want to get in front of and fits their style. And so most advisors I work with I don't know anybody that's making, cold calls every day. Instead, they're putting together their strategy that looks at what are their natural networks, what are the things that make it comfortable. And as an example, one East Coast advisor, he said, I'm so introverted, like I'm told to go to these events. And he goes, I just find myself standing there and stressed out because I don't want to interrupt a group's of conversation. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, what would you think, Mike, if you put together your strategy that doesn't include any of those? And he's like, can I? And I'm like, it's your strategy.
Right.
Yeah, it's your strategy. Yes, you can. So I think that there's a lot of individual reluctances is a good word toward the selling itself.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. And I do want to go there because I think our next question really talks on, about this and how you help people really this whole issue that we're going to unpack. But there is something about being the too busy, excuse. I personally think that it has something more to do with their psychology. And I think this is related to the sales process. It's a fear of success. It's, well, gee, if I get too much business, I'll have to hire. And I don't like to be a manager. I got in this business to be an advisor. I actually hear this all the time when I ask them about scaling their business, because I do help advisors scale their business without losing their balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so by scaling, I don't, help with the sales process. I help them to brand themselves, find the niche, and really, dig into where that ideal client is and find them. So, I mean, that's part of it, and scaling and, management and other things. I have other people help me with that. And, you're a perfect example of someone that can help them with the sales process, specifically. But I kind of go back to this fear of what are they truly masking? Maybe it's this fear of success as the core. And this idea as well of, well, I don't want to look unprofessional, too salesy because I'm an advisor. Maybe it's that outcome versus advisor you talked about is also trying to mask that inner demon of fear of success because they are insecure. They are typically, wanting to be a certain identity to the public. And if they become too big, what will those people think of them? I actually had an advisor tell me, Travis, I can't invite my clients to my home for a dinner party. And I was like, why? I live in a gated community of like 5 million plus, mansions, that I don't want them to think, well, gee, this guy's taking all my money. Look what he's doing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you have a fear of success. You're successful, but you have the fear of what other people are thinking about you when you get there. And you're kind of there. But it's affecting his future decisions. It's affecting literally how he's serving his clients. Does that make sense? Do you resonate with that? Do you see that with advisors?
It's interesting. I do. And there's 2 books this last few months that I've been actually working through for myself. And you've heard of them, Unhackable. Have you heard of Unhackable?
I think I've heard the title. I've not read it. No.
It's about how we get in the way of ourselves. And then the other one is The Big Leap. I think it's called The Big Leap. Right. And so there are these fears where we sabotage ourselves. We do sabotage for all kinds of reasons. So it's interesting when I'm working with people on their sales skills and their sales process. We talk about the skill part of things and the will part of things. And the will are all of those internal things, which include beliefs, which that's where fear of success and what do I believe I deserve and all those, emotional intelligence, initiative, and goal transparency. But those things always trump skill. If they're not where they need to be, they will get in the way. So someone can be skillful at anything, but if they don't get out there, and the best athlete, who practices by themselves and never puts themselves in a game, isn't really using their skills in a way that's beneficial to anybody else.
Yeah. If we go back to that again, that definition of fiduciary.
Yeah.
Is your fear of success keeping you from serving the client the way that they should? Mm-hmm. Are they truly being served, or do you have some, emotional, psychological, behavioral stuff that's getting in the way of doing that? And is it affecting your sales? You better believe it. You better believe it. As I always, like to start with that mindset, because I know it's typically where they're getting stuck first before they start implementing, a great sales process or a niche or whoever. Of course, it's
management, anything, yes, right?
Anything, add anything, right? I'm a very big believer in the cognitive and the behavioral. The behavioral is your habits. The cognitive is what you're thinking. Some people say, change your thoughts will change your behaviors. The behaviorist says, change your behaviors. It'll change how you think about it, right? But if you can combine the two, if you can build the two together, now you have a marriage that lasts forever. Like that is a surefire way. In fact, they did this with smoking cessation. I maybe share this in other episodes where smokers who wanted to quit tried either end, but they found when they used a cognitive behavioral process together, that was the best way forward. So I think it was like mindset and then process. Like, what is your process? What's your sales process? Where's your mindset? So I know we were covering mindset. We could spend a whole hour on that, but let me ask you about process. So you've got these reluctant financial advisors who probably have fear of success a little bit, maybe a fear of failure that, they're going to try to be a professional, but they're going to fail in the process and therefore look like a salesy, whatever salesman, right? You fill in the blank. So they're reluctant to even jump on this word. They don't even like the word sale, right? They never use it. It's, all sorts of different words I've seen. So here you are. Hey, I'm helping advisors to make more sales, and I'm helping them to really get past this reluctance. How do you do that? Why don't you spell that out for us?
Well, I have to meet them where they're at. So we have components that we know will work together to help someone be successful. And so, I'm working with a new advisor who he's got plenty of leads coming in. He's just not converting them. So with him, we're working on, okay, so what is your sales process? What are your meeting structure? Are you looking for a decision after meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3? And just we help them refine their sales process or the company's sales process. And then there's the training part of it. And that is a 12-week process that helps match the skills, the mindset, and get people to build habits where we really focus on how do you maximize every interaction with somebody? How do you have a conversation that helps somebody get what they need to make a confident decision? So a conversation is an information exchange. It's what you and I are doing. In a podcast like this, our objective is to educate, and help people understand something. In a conversation, depending on whether it's a sales conversation or even after you have a client, it's what is the objective of that conversation and what's the information that needs to be exchanged along the way with you guiding it so that they can get there. So it's a training aspect of it. And then depending on that, there's accountability. So there's group coaching or individual coaching, but it's helping them build. And we find with some people, it's easier for them to look at a lead generation strategy and the process after they feel more comfortable with selling. So the training part works so much initially on what is selling really. And, it's a conversation that's an information exchange leading to a decision. It's really all it is. It's not now get out there and manipulate people. And I would ditch the pitch. Don't people think I have to have the perfect words to help somebody. So help me with my value statement, help me with my pitch. And it's like, you don't need that. You need to be able to lead a good conversation where you're gathering information and they're clarifying information so that you can connect how you work with them to help with that. And you've got to earn the right along the way for them to do that and make a decision. So, that's how we work. We call them the growth system. It's, there's a little tweaks for, independent individuals, but it's really helping them be comfortable and confident in the selling conversation. And then the other parts of, setting up a process and things if they need it.
You dropped a bomb there. I only got part of it. I may ask you to say this again.
Okay.
But maybe it's just reprogramming what we think sales is, right? It's a conversation to gather information that leads to a decision. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Well, a conversation, you're guiding a conversation, that's an information exchange. So it's not just gathering, it's an information exchange that leads to a decision or an action, like one or the other.
Is that not what a fiduciary does? Just throwing that out there, financial advisor, like, is this not what you do? Do you not gather and exchange information and try to advise clients on what it is you think that they should do? How is sales such a bad word? Why is that a 4-letter word?
4-letter word. Yeah.
Right. Why is sale a 4-letter word, in the financial advisor, vocabulary? And probably because they don't think of it this way. Maybe even just listen to this podcast. You can, if you're listening by yourself or whatever, like realize, yes, you're right. It is just an informational exchange to try and help, a client. And maybe sometimes it's, no, I can't help you, or this is the person you need to go talk to, or you maybe try this and then come back. Maybe they don't become a client, but isn't that the fiduciary responsibility that they have? And I know we've been hitting this a lot because I think there is a disconnect here between what a sale is and what a fiduciary does. Can it not be the same? Now, of course, we could probably talk for hours about the ways that quote unquote financial advisors have broken that trust. Like we just need to pull open financial planning. And every time we do, I see somebody that's done that. However, and that's the sad part, but I mean, quite honestly, go ahead.
It's the minority though.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
What people remember. I know.
Yeah. What I'm saying is like that happens in any industry, but because we're talking about people's life savings and it's so effective in destroying or helping them build what they want to in their life that it is a huge responsibility. So I can understand to a small extent why there is a little bit of fear, trepidation, anxiety around. But if you have good processes in place, you shouldn't fear the fiduciary part. That's what I'm getting from you today.
Exactly. And a lot of it comes from your mindset and your approach to it. And most people don't buy financial advisory services in their lifetime. Maybe you, like me, we made one great decision and it's carried through for 28 years, right? Other people, it might be a few times. So they don't know how to buy what you're offering. Mm-hmm. And when they hear financial advisor, they're nervous that you're going to push insurance sales at them. That, they don't get, the bigger picture and where the industry really has evolved, through all of that. So when you say, I'm in sales, it just happened to me yesterday in the pool when I was exercising after work last night. This woman goes, "What is it that you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a sales growth consultant." And it immediately, like her face was like, "Okay, I'm done with this conversation." Like it is, you mentioned the word sales and it's negative, but you mentioned a word like financial advisor. And because so many people have gotten the robocalls and all of those things, there is a negative connotation, but you can change that. Right. And I would say you differentiate yourself in the first minutes by making sure that conversation is about them and that it's not, what is my pitch to try to say some words that are going to get you interested. It's more, how do I, what are we going to do in this conversation, and making sure that you're making it about them and that you're ready with questions that aren't, how much income do you have? And I just reviewed someone's questionnaire but that they use in their sales process. And the very first screen was all about income and whatever. And I'm like, so what are you sending them as a message? And he was like, whoa, like, that's not what I want, but we got to be careful that if we talk about those things first, then people are still going to be hesitant. And instead, we have to set the stage about you so that I can either say, I think I can help you, let's continue the conversation, or I'll let you know, for what you have going on, I don't believe I'm the right person, for that. And, here's something else you can do. But you can very quickly it's the simple communication things, like simple. Listen more than you talk. ask open questions, but really listen to their answer and ask a second question. That second question tells a lot more about you than the first one. Paraphrase back, let them be the star. That's, it's not that hard to help people feel important, especially if you're really, I don't know how to say, I don't want to say this in a negative way. If you really do care, if you really do care, don't act interested. You need to be interested.
And people know the difference, even on Zoom. On Zoom. I taught for a short period of time at a university level. It was an undergraduate level where we were really helping future advisors learn listening skills. Majority of what I taught them was actually what financial counselors get trained to do way better than financial advisors. There, we can talk to XY Planning, Michael Kitces. There's a bunch of people out there in kind of trying to help people move towards these more softer skills, which you just brought up. And, we hear it. Yeah, we should be good listeners. But maybe even the title, financial advisors, maybe that's part of the problem. To give advice, right? Well, I'm here to tell you what to do. I'm here to, advise you on the future. And if you just listen to me, everything's going to be okay. Don't listen to the talking heads on CNN or, any of the signs of hyperinflation coming. Instead, the really good financial advisors are the ones that take those phone calls and they listen and they understand. They're empathetic. It's not just a good sales tactic, but it's a fiduciary responsibility. Plus, it's just a good human behavior. It's what a friend does. That's why you call your friend. You don't actually call your friend most of the time to get advice. You typically know what you need to do. But most of the time, you do call a friend to say, I'm suffering. I'm in trouble. Like this happened. And you want a listening ear. So advisors, like what you just mentioned, not only does this help them when they become a client, but in the client acquisition, i.e. sales process, that you listen to them is so important. Can't emphasize that enough. So I think
it's interesting. This morning, an advisor chose to go forward with our year-long program. And she said, I've talked to many coaches, and she said, I really know that you get me, and that's important to me. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I've had one 40-minute conversation with her, but I learned a lot. And so in my recommendation to her, I connected it to what I learned about her. It wasn't, it's of course, here's the components, but I connected them all to, and this is going to help you because you want to, do this on your schedule and you want to do this. And it really, really makes a difference, especially if you're genuine. So everything we do starts with the word genuine. We have genuine sales, genuine lead gen course, because it's take best practices, but you do have to make them your own. Like nobody can, I can't show up as you talking about achieving balance. Nobody will trust me, but I wrote down twice now as you've talked, the financial advisors, right? We're knowledge people, we're experts, technical expertise. And I think that to earn the right for someone to care about that, you've got to care about them. So when you do, that trust is built and they're like, you know what? My money, right? This is my money. But I trust this person has my best interest in mind. And therefore, I think if I work with you, it's going to be to my benefit.
100%. I love that. Genuine, the integrity, the, really focusing on the client. We spend so much time talking about building the business and scaling it, and all those things are great. They're fantastic. But the ones that do it the best, ones that I've worked with, ones that I've seen, and that don't lose their balance is because they do care about their client, but they know where their boundaries are. Like that's kind of the balance part of this is just, yes, care about the client, love them. But because we're in such a helping industry, in any helping industry for that matter, sometimes we lose that balance because we forget about the personal things that you talked about, your own personal goals. Do it, getting out and going to the gym. By 4:30, I'm out of here every day. sometimes at 4, because I work out or I do activities with my family or my kids, because I set those as priorities in part so that I will not be a workaholic, right? I could not be the balance guy and not at least be trying. Like, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying. Well, I've loved this conversation. This has been wonderful, Nancy. You've broken open the can of worms. It's out, the can's open here, at least on this podcast. And I hope everybody, takes some kernels of wisdom, whatever strikes them, wherever, action they need to take because of our conversation today as they've been listening in. But if they want to directly contact you, what's the best way to get a hold of you, to get in, on your radar? Is it to get the book? Is it to go out there and purchase that, or go to your website? What should they be doing?
It's interesting because I know the book is a helpful how-to on how to have conversations. If that's what you need, great. But I practice what I preach. If you think that there's something you're struggling with sales, let's have a conversation. I call them sales strategy conversations. It's 30 minutes of free coaching where we focus on a specific sales issue you have. I give you practical, actionable advice. And then if you say, gosh, this was so helpful, I do want to know about your services, then we schedule another conversation. So if you go to www.salesproinsider.com, click under the middle column, and it will, it's like individual wealth advisors or something. And then it'll take you to a form to be able to schedule that. But if you want to do something, if you want outside counsel on, hey, I'm stuck here with my sales. And you know what? Sometimes in those 30 minutes, I help people get unstuck enough that they're good. And I feel good about it. I don't feel it's a waste of my time. I feel really good about it. And then if there's something more, then we continue the conversation. So that's the best way.
Love it. Go to salesproinsider.com. Check that out. What a great resource you are. Spend half an hour to be able to really get it, find out where you're stuck in the process. I love that. Otherwise, pick up the book, Conversations That Sell. Thank you, Nancy, for being on the program, helping advisors, giving back, helping them to have balance in every area of their life, but specifically here in their professional life on the sales process and that fiduciary responsibility that they have. Thanks again. And we appreciate, you spending your time.
My pleasure.